She threatened him with execution, then begged him not to leave. A death sentence was the price of saving 3 million lives. At dawn, Captain Marcus Chen will be atomized in front of a watching galaxy, by the very Empress whose orders he defied. But when she visits his cell in the middle of the night, he discovers her bombardment was never meant to kill anyone, and his heroic choice may have just triggered the war she spent 10 years preventing. Now, with an empire on the brink of civil war and billions of lives hanging in the balance, one human has to do the unthinkable, turn his own execution into the only chance to save the Empress, the rebels, and the future of humanity's place among the stars. Part 1. The Tribunal. The air in the Grand Chamber tasted of ozone and barely restrained violence. Captain Marcus Chen stood before the Galactic Council's judgment seat, his wrists bound in quantum shackles that hummed with enough energy to vaporize him at a thought. Above him, Empress Valandra Koss sat upon her throne of living crystal, her violet eyes burning with an intensity that could crack planets. "You dare," she hissed, her voice echoing through the chamber like thunder, "you dare defy my direct command." Marcus met her gaze without flinching. Around them, the 12 species of the Council watched in utter silence. This wasn't just a trial. This was a spectacle. A human, a species barely a century into spacefaring civilization, standing accused of treason against the empire that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. "I didn't defy anything, Your Majesty," Marcus said calmly. "I saved 3 million lives on Kelter 4. Your command was to let them burn." A collective gasp rippled through the assembled delegates. No one spoke to the Empress this way. No one contradicted her, ever. Valandra rose from her throne, her ceremonial armor shifting like liquid mercury. She descended the steps with predatory grace, each footfall resonating with barely contained fury. When she reached him, she stood so close he could see the bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin pulsing with her heartbeat. "Those weren't lives," she said quietly, dangerously. "Those were rebels, insurgents who threatened the stability of this empire. And you," she jabbed a finger into his chest, "you undermined my authority in front of the entire quadrant." "I did my job," Marcus replied. "I'm a peacekeeper, not an executioner." The Empress's hand shot out, gripping his jaw with inhuman strength. Her fingers could crush reinforced steel. "Your job is whatever I tell you it is. You serve at my pleasure. You breathe at my discretion." She released him and stepped back, her expression shifting to something colder, more terrible than rage. "Captain Marcus Chen of Earth, you are hereby found guilty of insubordination, violation of Imperial Protocol 7, and conspiracy against the Crown. The penalty is death by atomization." Marcus felt his heart hammer against his ribs, but he kept his face neutral. He'd known this was coming the moment he diverted the orbital bombardment platforms away from the civilian sectors. "Execution will commence at dawn," Valandra continued, turning away from him. "Let it be known across all systems, no one defies the eternal empire, not even humanity's so-called heroes." As the guards moved to escort him to the detention level, Marcus caught something in the Empress's reflection on the polished floor, a flicker of uncertainty, quickly masked. It was gone so fast he almost thought he'd imagined it. But he hadn't. Part 2. The Midnight Visitor. The holding cell was designed to contain beings far more dangerous than humans. Hard-light walls that could withstand planetary-scale explosions. Gravity generators that could crush bone to powder. Quantum surveillance that made privacy an ancient myth. Marcus sat on the hovering sleep platform, running calculations in his head. Escape was impossible. Rescue was unlikely. The human delegation would lodge formal protests, of course, but Earth was too young, too weak to challenge the Empire directly. He'd made his choice knowing the cost. He'd do it again. The cell's ambient lighting suddenly flickered, once, twice. Then the surveillance feeds went dark, something that should have been impossible. The hard light barrier shimmered and vanished. Empress Vailendra Kas stepped into his cell, alone, wearing not her ceremonial armor but a simple black cloak that somehow made her more intimidating. The door sealed behind her, and Marcus realized with a start that she disabled every security protocol in this section. "Your Majesty," he began, rising to his feet. "Shut up," she said, but there was no venom in it. She paced the small space like a caged predator, her composure finally cracking. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Saved innocent people from. You've ruined everything," the words exploded from her. 10 years, Captain. 10 years I've spent consolidating power, eliminating the warmonger faction, positioning moderates into key positions. I was this close to signing the Kelter Reformation Act, full amnesty, regional autonomy, everything those rebels wanted. Marcus stared at her, his mind reeling. What? Vailendra stopped pacing and fixed him with those burning violet eyes. That bombardment order was theater. Political theater for the hardliners who still control the military. The targeting coordinates were deliberately off. The strikes would have hit empty desert while making enough noise to satisfy the bloodthirsty elements on both sides. 0 casualties. Maximum political leverage. The implications crashed over Marcus like a tidal wave. But I changed the coordinates. You changed nothing except the optics, Vailendra snapped. Now the rebels think I'm weak, the hardliners think I'm incompetent, and the moderates think I've lost control. You didn't save anyone, Captain. You just started a war I've spent a decade preventing. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him. Why didn't you tell me? Because you're human. The Empress's composure shattered completely. Your people have been in space for what, 80 years? You don't understand the labyrinthine politics of species that have been negotiating treaties since your ancestors were hiding in caves. I couldn't risk the information leaking. She moved closer, and for the first time, Marcus saw past the imperial facade, saw the exhaustion in the set of her shoulders, the desperate calculation behind her eyes. I don't want to execute you, Vailendra said quietly. You're the best tactical officer I've ever commanded. You're brilliant, principled, and too damned noble for your own good. But if I show mercy now, I lose what little authority I have left. The empire fractures. Billions die in the civil war that follows. So you need a scapegoat, Marcus said. I need you to understand what you've cost us both. The Empress turned away, her cloak swirling. At dawn you die, and I become exactly the tyrant everyone believes I am. The barrier snapped back into place. Vailendra stood on the other side, her hand pressed against the hardlight as if she could reach through it. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then she was gone, leaving Marcus alone with the weight of consequences he'd never imagined. Part 3. The Impossible Choice. 3 hours before dawn, the cell barrier dropped again. This time it was Commander Yala, Vailendra's chief of security, a towering Kresh warrior whose species viewed honor as their most sacred currency. Captain Chen, Yala rumbled, his 4 arms crossed over his armored chest. You will come with me, quickly. Marcus didn't move. Is this an early execution? This is an extraction. Yala's mandibles clicked with what might have been frustration. The Empress has authorized your escape. A human courier ship is docked at Bay 47. You will be on it before the dawn shift change. She's letting me go. She's destroying herself to save you, Yala corrected harshly. When your absence is discovered, she will be accused of weakness, corruption, possibly treason herself, but she cannot live with your death on her conscience. The warrior's voice dropped. I have served Vailendra Kas for 30 years. I have never seen her compromise her principles for anyone. You should be honored and terrified. Marcus's mind raced. If he ran, Vailendra lost everything. If he stayed, he died, but she might salvage her political position. 2 impossible choices. What does she want me to do? He asked. Yala's expression was unreadable. She wants you to live, human. She wants one good thing to survive this catastrophe. Marcus thought of the 3 million people on Kelter 4 who were alive because he'd acted. Thought of the billions Valandra was trying to save through decades of patient political maneuvering. Thought of the Empire teetering on the edge of civil war. "Take me to her," he said. "That is not." "Now, Commander." Something in Marcus's tone made the massive warrior pause. Then, impossibly, Yala's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. "You humans are either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most suicidally stupid. Can it be both?" Part 4. The Proposal. Valandra's private chambers occupied the highest tower of the Imperial Palace. Marcus had never been here, few had. The space was surprisingly austere, more military barracks than royal residence. Strategic maps covered the walls. Data streams cascaded through holographic displays. This wasn't where an Empress lived. This was where a general fought a war no one else could see. She stood at the viewport, watching the pre-dawn darkness over the capital city. She didn't turn when they entered. "I told you to get him off-world," she said to Yala. He refused, Majesty. Now she turned, and Marcus saw she'd been crying, silent tears that left crystalline traces on her cheeks. "You fool, you beautiful, idiotic fool." "I have a better idea than running," Marcus said. "There are no better ideas. You die or you run. Those are the only options the political reality allows." "What if we change the reality?" Marcus moved to her strategic displays, his mind assembling pieces at light speed. "You need to look strong. You need the rebels to surrender. You need the hardliners to shut up." "Impossible. The three positions are mutually exclusive." "Not if you have a human weapon they've never seen before." Marcus pulled up the after-action reports from Kelter 4. "I didn't just redirect the bombardment. I hacked the entire planetary defense grid using human quantum tunneling algorithms, technology the Empire doesn't have." Valandra's eyes widened. "That should be impossible, our systems." "Are 10,000 years old," Marcus interrupted. "Refined, stable, powerful, yes, but predictable. Human tech is chaotic, barely controlled, 50 different standards that shouldn't work together but do. We're the cosmic equivalent of duct tape and prayer, and sometimes that's exactly what breaks through." He manipulated the displays, showing her the infiltration patterns. "Keep me alive. Make me your special advisor on human integration. Tell the hardliners you're exploiting humanity's unique talents. Tell the moderates you're building bridges. Tell the rebels you're bringing in fresh perspectives." "They'll never believe." "They'll believe what you make them believe," Marcus pressed. "You're the Empress. You've spent 10 years playing politics at a level I can barely comprehend. Use me. Actually use me this time instead of keeping me in the dark." Valandra stared at him for a long moment. Then, impossibly, she laughed, a sound like shattering crystal. "You want me to turn your execution into a promotion?" "I want us to stop working at cross purposes." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "You're trying to save an empire. I'm trying to save lives. Those don't have to be contradictory goals." The Empress moved to her command chair, her tactical mind clearly running scenarios. "It could work, if we move fast, if we sell it correctly." She looked up at him. "You understand this means you can never leave. You'll be bound to the imperial court for the rest of your natural life. No freedom, no privacy, every action scrutinized." "Sounds like being a soldier," Marcus said. "I'm used to it." Yala spoke up, his voice thoughtful. "The optics would be powerful. The merciful Empress who transforms enemies into allies. The human who chose service over escape." "It's also the truth," Valandra said quietly, her eyes never leaving Marcus. "Isn't it, Captain?" Marcus thought about running, about returning to Earth, to a simple life far from imperial politics. Then he thought about 3 million lives saved, about billions more hanging in the balance. "Yes," he said, "it's the truth." Part 5. The Dawn Declaration. The execution platform was exactly as terrible as Marcus had imagined. a raised stage in the central plaza, surrounded by holographic projectors that would broadcast his atomization across the entire empire. Billions would watch. It was designed to be unforgettable. Vailendra had different plans. Marcus stood in quantum shackles that were very real, very active. This part of the theater couldn't be faked. If the Empress showed any sign of deception, sensors throughout the crowd would detect it. The gamble had to be genuine. Vailendra ascended the platform in full ceremonial armor, the sun rising behind her in a display so perfect it seemed staged by the universe itself. The crowd of thousands fell silent. Across the galaxy, billions stopped to watch. Captain Marcus Chen, her voice carried across the plaza and through countless worlds, you stand convicted of crimes against the Empire. Do you have any final words? This was the moment, the fulcrum on which everything balanced. Marcus took a breath. Your Majesty, I have only one request. Allow me to serve. Allow me to fix what I've broken. I don't ask for mercy. I ask for the chance to prove that humanity's place in this empire can be as builders, not as bodies. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't how executions went. Vailendra let the moment stretch, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke, and her words were calculated to perfection. You asked to serve the empire you betrayed. Skepticism dripped from every syllable. Give me one reason why I should trust a species that's barely left its own solar system with the security of 10,000 civilizations. Because we see what you've stopped seeing, Marcus replied. You've forgotten what it's like to solve problems without a million years of precedent. Humanity is chaos, yes, but chaos is innovation, and innovation is what empires need to survive. The Empress circled him slowly. Pretty words, but I require proof. I require something impossible. Marcus had rehearsed this part 100 times in the last 3 hours. The rebel stronghold on Kelter 4. You can't crack their shielding without orbital bombardment that kills millions. Give me 2 weeks. I'll walk through their front door and convince them to surrender. No weapons, no threats, just negotiation. The crowd erupted. Impossible, suicide, insanity. Vailendra raised her hand for silence. And when you fail, then you execute me on their doorstep. Double the message. The Empress stared at him, and Marcus saw the calculation in her eyes. Saw her weighing probabilities, political advantages, risks. This was the performance of her life, and she was magnificent. 2 weeks, she finally said. You will be fitted with a quantum tracker. Attempt to flee, and atomization is instantaneous. Return with anything less than complete rebel surrender, and your execution will be broadcast to every inhabited world in the Empire. She stepped close, her voice dropping to something only he could hear. Don't make me regret this. Then louder, release him. The quantum shackles disintegrated. Marcus stood free, the morning sun warm on his face, while the galaxy watched in stunned disbelief. The Empress who had threatened him with execution had just given him the impossible task of saving her empire. And somehow, despite everything, Marcus found himself smiling. I won't let you down, he said. You'd better not, Vailendra replied, her own lips quirking in something that might have been hope. Because if you fail, we both die, just in very different ways. As the crowd erupted into chaos, as the political machinery of the empire shifted into overdrive, Marcus realized something profound. He'd come to this galaxy alone, a representative of a species barely worthy of notice. Now he stood at the center of everything, with an Empress who'd begged him not to leave hidden beneath a facade of imperial steel, and 2 weeks to prevent a war that could consume billions. Humanity's first real test among the stars wouldn't be military might or technological supremacy. It would be whether one human could keep his word to an Empress who trusted him with everything. The game had changed, and Marcus Chen was all in.